firewall grommet for the main ECU wiring. These are the two plugs for the engine harness. Injectors, sensors and everything come through here. And I've got a very limited space in my firewall to get that through. Now my clutch cable hole is 20mm, way too small. So the closest thing I could find that I think I can get away with is this grommet, which is for a 37mm hole. I think I can enlarge that 20mm out to 37, 38 without clashing into other stuff. So I've also got to be able to fit these connectors through the hole, unless I want to wire up the whole thing in situ and then never be able to remove it, which is not what I want to do. So I've got a 38mm hole saw, drilled myself a test piece in some alley, and well, first of all, let's see if I can actually get these connectors through the hole. That goes through. And that. Yep, I can get them both through. When they're loomed together, I can get them both through the hole. That'll go in there. There you go. Should work quite nicely. So we're getting to the pointy end of the wiring now. Getting it properly underway. This is the bundle from the Haltech that's under the dash. This is all the wires I'm going to use, which is not all of the ones that came on the basic loom. There's only 20 or 22 wires in here that I'm going to use. So the first thing I did was I mapped out what every wire in these two plugs does, like this. Every pin, every wire, and then I also cross-referenced it with this factory diagram, which is a little bit different. So I made this because this didn't exactly match the wiring on my engine. But once I had those two, I then came over to the Haltech diagram here and made myself a list of wiring. So these are the pin numbers, the wire numbers on the Haltech in this column, and then the brown and grey plugs, that's these two. So that's, say, Haltech wire 19 goes to brown plug pin 12. So injector 1, pin 19, which is blue on the Haltech loom, goes to brown pin 12, which is pink. That's actually these 4 wires in here. Those are all the injectors together, those 4 pink ones. Anyway, that's that. Next step is to lay the Haltech wiring in place roughly, just to make sure it's actually going to fit. And I'll start laying these wires out where they're supposed to go. So most of them are just going to come straight down here. But lay them all out in place. I might trim them roughly to length, leave a bit on there, because you can see how long this is. I've got a lot of spare. If we come in under the dash, the Haltech is in there with the main harness plugged in. The wideband is up there with all its wiring plugged in. So the wideband controller comes down to the ECU with this wiring here, and you can see how much too long this is. So I'm going to have to trim that right down to basically nothing. And then this wire from the wideband controller goes out to the sensor. So I have to get this through the wiring grommet. I'm going to have to depin that plug and push it through the grommet, then repin it. No big deal. I'm really pushing the limit of what's possible to fit through this grommet, and I'm pushing the limit of what's possible to fit in general in terms of space, as usual, because this is quite a small car. The only thing I can see being a problem is the cam and crank sensor wiring on the Haltech. They've got 2 fat bundles for cam and crank separately. So that's 4 wires 4 wires with a shielding inside each of those fat grey ones. I think I'm going to have to repin the Haltech plug to just use one of these for cam and crank, which is what the factory loom did. Those 4 there, that's cam and crank in the same shielding. And then I can get rid of one of these big fat wires, which will free up some space in the grommet. So, to make the hole in the firewall large enough for the wiring grommet, this is what you do. You stack 2 hole saws. This is on a special arbor that's got 2 threads on it, so you can do this. And 2 hole saws and the arbor cost me $75, so this is a bloody expensive hole. Plus the drill, which I bought last week. But that wasn't just for this, but anyway. Yep, one expensive hole coming up. So it's that hole in there. And it is pretty much bang on 20mm, or maybe it's 19.8 or something, because this 20mm hole saw doesn't quite squeeze through that way around, but it does go that way. So I reckon I have to do something tricky. Watch this space. So I just use the old deburring tool, give that a few runs around in there, and it's actually not too bad now. Shouldn't cut the grommet. Oh, there we have it. The grommet's in place, and it looks bloody good, I have to say. Almost factory. Very happy with that, and a perfect fit, that size hole, and yeah, that's going to be very nice. And the wiring, it's going to go a little something like this. Up under the heater box, from behind the center console. Got a bit of a loop in it for some slack, and then out the hole. Looking very nice indeed.